When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouthwatering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Mixed Doubles Podcast. We're your hosts, Maggie Robinson
and Josh Smith McCauley.
We're former D1 athletes and co-workers at a major professional sports league with a passion for all things women's sports. If you're interested in more content, please follow us at Mixed Doubles Pod. That is 1D, the Mix and the Doubles share it. And as always, please give us 5 stars. Throw us a little rating on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. It really goes a long way and it boosts our engagement. So if you like what you're hearing, give us 5 stars. And from there, Josh, take it away.
All opinions stated here are our own and have no affiliation with our employer whatsoever. I had to really look this time because I messed up last time. And so I read it verbatim, word for word. I think I got it. I think I hit it this time.
You got it. The stakes were high and you crushed.
The stakes were very high. Every time I hear that phrase too, I always just think about like cloudy with a chance of meatballs because of you get it, right? Like all the stuff that's falling from the sky, it's all food. It's like the stakes are high. So it's like
the stakes are
falling from the sky. I think it's just me.
Someone in an email at work accidentally wrote stakeholders as in like the food steak. And so all I can picture is just a bunch of people in business suits holding a steak.
They actually wrote that out like in our office?
They wrote stakeholders. Yeah.
Let's talk about people who probably aren't stakeholders though and just jump into it with our big plays.
And big players. Okay, we got some cool people this time. We always do, but this week is extremely special. I have Temwa Chawinga, who's a 26-year-old Malawian forward for the KC Current, which is the NWSL team in Kansas City. She has been a breakout star in the NWSL. She won the Golden Boot, which is given to the league's top scorer in her debut season playing in the NWSL. She was playing pro abroad in China, where she was scouted by NWSL coaches. But in her first year here, she scored 20 goals in 25 matches. And let me remind you that the NWSL is the top of the top. These are players who are on the U.S. national team and on national teams abroad. Like, this is not an easy league. And she scored a goal in almost every single game she stepped foot in. And she set the record for the most goals in the season. She also was the first Malawian player to play in the NWSL and the first African-born player to win the Golden Boot Award.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Wow.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I also heard too, like, I don't know exactly how many goals second place had, but it was a pretty far margin between that 20 number and whatever was in second. So kudos to her. That's impressive. My big player is both a big play and a big player this time. So it's actually Instagram, the social media app that we all use and love or hate, whatever you want to say for it. And WNBA megastar Diana Taurasi, who this season, I think if you watched, she's 41 years old. You might have thought this is it, right? Like this is the last season for her. She'll probably finish, wrap up. She's already doing her podcast and doing all this stuff with Sue Bird and everybody else. You thought this is it, right? But no, in LeBron James fashion, she's come out with Instagram. They've partnered on a really cool marketing campaign geared toward Instagram notes, which if you use Instagram, you've probably seen if you go kind of towards your DM section, it's these things that pop up on people's avies or their avatars that are just essentially like, what are your thoughts? What's your vibe right now? Type it out, whatever. And I think they're really trying to push that, but they use Diana Taurasi in a really cool campaign that's been kind of plastered everywhere, especially in New York, with her using the emojis to essentially say one last dance. So everybody's speculating this upcoming season is going to be her last. Before this, I think a lot of people were trying to think about if last season was her last, if she was going to come back. That had been a point of discussion over the offseason. So this, I feel like, is her making it pretty clear. She's coming back for one more. It's going to be exciting. She's going to get all of her flowers as she should. It's going to be the last dance tour, and she deserves it more than anybody right now. She has been such a steward of the game and such a phenomenal women's basketball player in general over, like the last 20 years. So really cool on Instagram. and really awesome news for Diana Taurasi. But let's jump into kind of general industry news, what's going on right now. One that came out today as we're recording, which was pretty cool. Whoopi Goldberg, who, if you don't know, shame on you, ridiculous. But Whoopi Goldberg, well-renowned actress, she's everywhere, announced the launch of the first global women's sports channel, AWSN, which I'm assuming stands for a women's sports network. I don't know.
All women's sports network.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Do your research. I did not.
Yeah. And it will show, as its title implies, women's sports 24/7. It'll be available in 65 different countries, and it's already in the Philippines, it's in India, it's in different places in China, and it rolls out in the US next week. And on top of having live game coverage, it will also have behind-the-scenes features, analysis shows, documentary series, interactive segments with athletes. So it's kind of trying to be, in my mind, it seems like what ESPN, like they want to have a 30 for 30 kind of segment. They want to have these like desk shows with different sports analysts talking about strictly women's sports. So in my mind, this seems similar to the website Just Women's Sports, where, again, as the title implies, that's all they're talking about. And it's your one-stop shop for everything digital. This is going to be your one-stop shop for everything broadcast, over the air, network TV. So I'm excited to see where this goes. I think the reach will be a little hard, just given there's so many giants in the space of sports broadcasting in terms of like different TV networks. But I'm glad someone's taking this step and putting money behind this effort. I think it'll be good.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. It'll be really cool. I think that was my question too when I heard about it, was what kind of rights are they going to have, especially in the US, being as they're launching next week? Is it going to be more analysis and, kind of like shoulder programming, or are they going to actually be able to tap into, because, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks, and NWSL has already done their deals for the next couple of years. So is the WNBA. So will they be able to kind of get those rights? Probably. I hope so. It'd be really cool to have a one-stop shop and you can get everything there. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. My next thing. So I did not run the New York City Marathon this past weekend. I did run the Cape Cod Marathon a few weeks ago and was absolutely crushed by it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. However, some people are really good at running marathons, namely the women's winner of the New York City Marathon, the Kenyan runner Sheila Chepkirui, finished first this past weekend with a time of 2 hours, 24 minutes, and 35 seconds. And guess how fast she ran the final mile? 4 minutes and 59 seconds. After all of those miles, she was like, the legs feel fine. Let me hit a quick 4:59.
Let me get a quick sub 5.
Incredible. She won a cash prize of $100K. And let me just say, she's pretty new to the sport of marathons. And New York is notorious for not having people hit PRs because the back 6 miles are incredibly hilly. You're going over a lot of bridges. It's not really flat and fast. So for her to win this at this time with that as her final mile is just incredible. And she is definitely a name to keep an eye out for going forward in the sport of distance running.
Yeah, as I always say, we're done for a reason. I don't think I've ever touched a 5-minute mile in my life. I don't think, actually, I know I will never touch a 5-minute mile for the rest of my life, but incredible for Sheila, and incredible for all the people that ran and participated, whether you were just doing it for funsies or you were going all out and running a sub 5 in your 26 mile. So it's a super cool event. Like, it's one of those events that really makes you enjoy living in New York, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I missed it this year because I was gone, but typically one of the things that I love getting to go outside and, get some mimosas in the morning because I'm not running, and go watch and cheer on. It's just pure joy, and people are so happy and supportive. And it's just like, wow, this is what community feels like. So
yeah, it was like a big block party. I went out before I had to come into the office on Sunday, and the vibes were just so high. It was so cool to see. It was like 10 people deep, and it was just like people with signs, everybody's cheering, there's music playing, like all of New York comes out for this. So it was really cool to see. Not that I want to run another marathon, but if I was to at some point ever run another marathon, it might as well be New York. But that's
it might as well. So yeah, that's essentially you just stamping your name on the New York Marathon. So guys, give it like a year and we'll be talking about Maggie having ran a sub 5 in the marathon too. So in due time. But let's talk about a sport where there's probably less music and maybe not as big of a block party.
And no running?
No running, no running, unless you're like running after a ball that went haywire. I don't know.
Probably your caddy.
Yeah, maybe your caddy would do that. But no, we're talking about golf. Nelly Korda from the US, the #1 ranked golfer in the world, won the LPGA's Rolex Player of the Year award. And I mean, super well deserved, obviously, #1 player in the world. What's really cool about how she won it is that she did it with 3 tournaments left in the LPGA season. So the way that they score in awarding this title, being the highest point scorer, is per each tournament, you get points for top 10 finishes. And of the major tournaments, which I think there are 5 of, you get double those points. And so let's just list off some of Nelly's accomplishments this season. She's had 6 tournament wins. So straight up, 6 tournament wins, 9 top 10 finishes, and 3.6 million in earnings. And this
That's
is again,
money.
yeah, like if she wants to send me any of that, I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
happy to receive. Thank you very much. But with all of that, there's still 3 tournaments left, and they're actually playing a tournament right now in Hawaii. So hopefully they're enjoying the weather and it's just good vibes over there. But really impressive that she's been able to just sustain her success. And I think she's become more and more of a name. You've seen her in commercials. She's been in the T-Mobile commercial that's been doing numbers during the football season, which is fun.
Yeah.
But one of the cooler things is that the second place person right now would literally need to win out. So they would need to win the last 3 tournaments outright just for a chance to tie Nelly in points.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's
So
no
she's
way
far and
anybody
away
could
the
surpass
best.
her. Yeah.
Yeah. Ushering in a new face of women's golf. That's pretty exciting. Like it's
Fun
been a
time.
while since we've had like a far and away face of the sport, I feel like. Granted, I have limited golf knowledge, but I can't name a top golfer, like there hasn't been someone who's like carried the sport like that. And so I think this is kind of the role she's sliding into, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Speaking of some other people who are #1 in their sport, let's hop over to tennis. Ariana Sabalenka clinched the #1 WTA spot for singles this week, winning 2 of her 3 group stage matches. Let us remind you, in Saudi Arabia, playing in Riyadh in the WTA finals. And there's been a little bit of controversy because these games are in Saudi Arabia. One, some people don't agree with just like the way female athletes are regulated in that country. And also there's been incredibly low turnout for viewers. Like no one's really coming to these matches. They're really underattended. And it just kind of begs the question, okay, why are we putting them in these places if we're trying to grow viewership, we're trying to grow our audience? If it's in a different time zone than, say, the US, and also no one's coming to the matches, like why are we going there? I don't know. That's just something that I was thinking about this week was what's the benefit here? And I don't know.
I mean, I feel like I have a guess, and I think it's money.
Yeah.
That's literally it. If you think about the
Yeah.
only reason a lot of sporting events are going over to Saudi Arabia and in that general area. I mean, you think about the
Yeah.
World Cup in Qatar and just like all the shit that they have to deal with and putting that up over there. The PIF and all that. A lot of it is money, and they're making such a big push to become a sports capital. I do think it is interesting that they're being inclusive of the WTA and having women's sports be high profile over there, just because, again, like the way that they treat women over there is not the best in the world. So not a surprise, though, that the turnout is low and the viewership is low, too. I haven't even been able to really catch a game. And I think when they just pop up, they're at such random times, and I haven't seen a lot of promotion either. But not to down on the parade that is the WTA finals. It is a very fun event.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, money does talk. So the top 8 players are competing for more than $5 million in total earnings. So you will be making some money if you do well in this tournament, which that's a draw for sure.
I'm going to preface my transition with Maggie told me to say this, but let's bounce on over to the WNBA and talk about coaching changes, because there's been a lot of them. We talked about in our last podcast, just the carousel right now that has been the coaches and a lot of them getting let go, relieved, 7 to be exact, of their head coaching duties in the WNBA. And so now we're starting to see some teams make a push in hiring coaches. So the first one former Connecticut Sun coach Stephanie White, who we were surprised that left the Sun because they were a really good ball club this year. She's a really good head coach. She left, is now going to become the head coach for the Indiana Fever, a former Indiana Fever player herself. I think that's an amazing spot. She's already come out and had some fire behind her ideas for the team. And she inherits a team with Caitlin Clark and with Aaliyah Boston. So, like, this is a team that made the playoffs this year, but they're trying to make it to the finals, and they're trying to be a competitive team year in and year out. So getting a coach like Stephanie White, who not only has the connection as a player, but has had solid pedigree as a head coach in the WNBA, is going to be really cool to see how they kind of capitalize on that. The Chicago Sky selected former Aces assistant coach Tyler Marsh to become their new head coach. This was actually pretty funny because the Aces end up losing 2 of their assistant coaches, and some of their players, Asia Wilson, Sydney Colson, who I think is the funniest player in the WNBA, argue with a wall. I don't care. But they have some really funny just tweets about Tyler Marsh leaving. And, some being like, yo, we're grieving right now because Angel Reese was celebrating about getting a new head coach who presumably is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And, Sydney Asia being like, yo, like, literally give us a day. We're grieving right now. We just lost our guy.
Yeah.
And, Sydney being like, damn, not 2 coaches, and so it's funny, but I think it also goes to show how good and how deep the Aces coaching staff was, which is, I think, the true story.
And more big news. We just obviously finished up the WNBA season, but the NWSL season is coming to a close. Playoffs kicked off on Friday with the number 1 seeded Orlando Pride facing off against the number 8 seeded Chicago Red Stars, who are actually having a name change and are about to be called the Chicago Stars FC. I don't like that name change, for one. This isn't the story, but I don't like that change. Why are you changing them from the Chicago Red Stars to the Chicago Stars? What gives? What's the big deal?
It's like when you have your app name or whatever, your icon, and you make it very simplified. I don't know. I guess it's like the California tech version of reducing a name to its bits.
Right. It's like Twitter to X. I'm not calling it X. I'm calling it Twitter. That's why I'm going to still call them the Chicago Red Stars. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to the playoffs. Of the 14 clubs in the NWSL, the top 8 make the playoffs. So who else is in? Let's run through the list. At number 2, we have the Washington Spirit. Number 3, Gotham FC, represent. That's the New York, New Jersey team. They are incredibly good, stacked team with lots of U.S. women's national team players. We have the Kansas City Current, who, as we spoke about at the top, has the NWSL's Golden Boot player. They have the top scorer in the league. Scary team to have, sitting at number 4. And then at number 5, we have the North Carolina Courage. Number 6, the Portland Thorns. And number 7, Bay FC. The championship game will be played on November 23rd in, as Josh put it so nicely in our notes, the house that Brittany and Patrick Mahomes built. The Kansas City's current home stadium, which is one of the first soccer-specific stadiums built specifically for their women's team and, as stated, paid for by the Mahomes family. So Brittany Mahomes played college soccer, and Patrick Mahomes is a huge proponent of women's sports. Love that. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah. No, you didn't have to call me out. I know I called you out earlier. You didn't have to return the favor.
You wrote that.
I did. I actually, like, we'll keep that. And I think there are some additional investors of that team. It might not just be Brittany and Patrick, but they are the biggest names. So we don't know who else invested. We probably do if you look it up online. So shout out them. Thank you very much. Appreciate them. Other thing too, it would be really cool if the KC Current went all the way, right? Because they would be playing in KC. That would be dope. That would be pretty fun.
Kansas City teams, man.
I know.
Something's in the air down there, and I don't know what it is.
It's barbecue. It smells great. Probably smells great. Golly, I can't even hate them.
Yeah.
Can't even hate them.
Dang it.
They got good food over there.
They do. And with that, thank you guys for listening. This was fun, and we will catch you next time.
Sounded like the fakest this was fun ever.
Should I say that again?
No, I'm joking.